Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the T4G painting videos. So hopefully you've already seen the sculpting fire and the painting fire videos that I've done before and were the previous ones in this series. For this video I'm going to be using the exact same paints as I used in the painting fire video, and what I'm going to show you is how to add an object source lighting. So what that actually means is basically a glow effect. So sometimes when you're painting your models you might have a glowing gem or fire or whatever. Whenever you are trying to paint the effect of a source of light and how that has an effect on your model. So some of the very good painters will, if you look at Golden Demon and that sort of thing, will paint their models where, you know, they'll actually even go to the extent of having reflections and shadows that are perfectly placed depending on where the sources of light are in their model. And what I'm going to show you is a very basic technique and an army level technique that you can apply that just gives you the effect of glow coming off your flame. So when we actually painted the fire itself, the fire is obviously at its hottest point in the centre, so the lightest colour in the centre moving outwards, the opposite way to the way we would normally highlight. When you do an object source lighting, you highlight as normal, so the deeper reds will be in the recesses, and the lighter oranges and yellows will come out towards the surface. Now, the way I do my object source lighting, particularly, like I said, when I'm painting on an army scale, is a combination of dry brushing and glazing. Now, what the Golden Demon painters will do is glaze and glaze and glaze on their layer after layer after layer until they've built up the effect that they're looking for with that glow. And realistically, on an army level, it's not worth that. You know, it's not worth going to that extent and that many layers. You haven't got time to do that. So what I'm going to show you is a bit of a quicker way of getting this technique going by starting it off with some dry brushing. So the first colour that I'm going to start with is the red. And as you would with dry brushing, I'm going to take as much of that paint off my brush as I can. I'm actually going to mix a little bit of orange with it, so because I don't want the really deep red, I want kind of a dark orange colour. So you'll see the sort of shade of this as it's going onto the model. And then you need to look at your model through the flame. And that way, when you're looking at it at that angle, you can see every part of the model that will be seeing the reflection of that flame. Okay? If you move it slightly so you can see, it will only be the top of that shoulder. So the arm that we can see here, if you look through the flame, is actually blocked by the top of the shoulder and the head. The side of the face will be in the glow of the flame, and the top of the arm and the top of the hand, and that's just about it really. Maybe the top of the shoulder and the top of the right side of his chest there, but that's all that we'll be seeing the glow of the flame. His other hand will be blocked by his face, so that won't see the flame. You've got to think about where that glow effect is coming through. So the way I'm going to get this started is to lightly and very subtly dry brush the areas that we've just established would be in glow. Okay. Bearing in mind, the closer you get to the flame, the more pronounced you want this effect to be. You don't want to go too dark. You want to make sure that some of the original colours, particularly in the recesses, are showing through, the original browns and greys, so you can distinguish the different areas. I'm now going to mix significantly more yellow into that mix, and again then I'm just going to dry brush on. So I'm going to take most of that yellow off my brush. Again, I'm using the back of my hand, but you can use a tissue or whatever you like to take the paint off your brush. And then it starts again. Less paint on your brush this time, so a softer dry brush, a much more subtle dry brush. The first one was not a heavy dry brush, but heavier than this one. And you want to pick out even more of the raised areas, even closer to the source of the light. Okay, so using the dry brushing, we've started our effect off nicely. It's it's given us a good base to work from. Now we want to actually start layering on some very thin highlights. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some water to my paint. I've added a little bit more yellow to the shade as well, but I'm basically working from a shade, similar shade to what we had before, just with slightly more yellow in it. And I'm going to subtly then pick out the edges as if we were highlighting the model as normal. Now the reason you keep this very thin is just to keep your highlight really subtle. You don't want to overpower the orange underneath, and you certainly don't want to underpower the original colour of the model. The whole point of this object source lighting is that it's a glow effect. That yellow is supposed to be sitting on the original colour of the model. You are supposed to be able to tell that his skin tone and his brown fur is showing through that glow effect. He's not just spilt a bucket of orange paint on himself. There we go. And then finally I'm going to do exactly the same again, but with some white added into that mix as well. There we go. So the next thing I'm going to go for is a bloodletter glaze. So this is the red glaze that Games Workshop do, and what this is going to help do is to pull all those colours together, pull those highlights together, and also help to anything that we might have missed in the recesses is just going to get a bit of a warmer glow. I've mixed it 50-50 with Lamy and medium because you want this to be very subtle. And you can build up this layer by layer if you want the, if you find the first coat doesn't give you a pronounced enough effect. But the last thing on earth you want to do is ruin your model by going for a really thick layer of paint and basically just painting it red. That would not be good. So that first layer's on, really thin. It should dry off really quickly. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of alternate now between highlighting up on the raised edges with a very thin, I'm adding some Lamy and medium to my highlights, and glazing back down with a bloodletter until the effect looks right. So I've mixed some Lamy and medium into that last highlight that I'd done, and I'm going to go back and kind of apply some of that. So this is what the heavy metal painters would do from the start, is actually just glaze on each one of these highlights until they've built up the effect that they're looking for. And we'll do one last layer of bloodletter. Go back and do one final highlight of the yellow. Okay, so there we go. That is the effect finished. So you can see on one side that's his original skin tone, and as you rotate the model, you can see the object source lighting that we've added to the top of the thing. Unfortunately, this actually looks a lot better in real life than it does on the camera, and I don't know why the camera's not picking it up very well. But hopefully it gets the idea of how to achieve that effect across to you. So to give you another idea of an application of this technique, I thought I'd throw in this picture of the changeling model that I painted a few months back, simply because the photograph shows off the results a little bit better. I used exactly the same technique, dry brush up to get started, and this time it was over the blue robe, so the orange is a real stark contrast to that. But yeah, dry brush over, glaze up with thin highlights to get it up to that bright yellow, and then glaze back down with the red to pull all those highlights together. And it's just a case of repeating those last two steps until you're happy with the result. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. You can apply that to all different colours. You could do it with a blue glow, a greenish glow from gems, that sort of thing. But the main tip that hopefully you can pick up from that is the whole looking through the object itself to work out where the effect of that light would actually be hitting. And you can go as bright and subtle as you want. If I wanted to paint these like they were almost in darkness, I'd probably paint the model very, very dark and have that glow effect reaching right to the base and even to the guys around it. You might even want to decide where each guy sits in the unit, because that glow effect won't just hit his shoulder, it's going to hit the shoulder of the guy next to him. So that's all stuff to bear in mind. Yeah, hopefully that's useful and you can apply it to your hobby in the future. Thanks for listening.